everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Wiebe from Sportsnet. Together we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after another big Jets win against the Seattle Kraken. I don't think it was necessarily their best effort that we've seen as of late. I'm still in the full, complete, total mode where it's like nothing matters right now but the points, and the Jets go out and get the points. They do what they need to do to pull the points out of the bag here. A little bit of, shakiness to start the game. I think, I was watching before, and I don't know how I forgot about this. I was on the broadcast last night, but I'd forgot about a period into the game. The Jets were playing a back-to-back. So I think that there's a little bit of the back-to-back aspect of it. And it explains what we saw at the beginning of the game where Seattle jumped out to that lead. That said, I think there was stretches of the game where the Jets were giving up the center of the ice too much. I think if the Seattle Kraken were, not an expansion team and a team that had more snipers, a lot of those giveaways and, pucks that got to the slot would have been in the back of the net. None of it matters. None of that matters. Listen, if the Jets can start clawing their way back into a playoff position, then we can start having the conversation of, are they winning the right way? Are they picking up? Is that a game that's going to lead to them picking up bad habits? At this stage right now, it's just win baby territory, and the Jets did just that. And now, all of a sudden, hey, 2 games ago when they played the Chicago Blackhawks, there was a ton of people in the chat room who were saying this is an absolute lost cause. I'm sure there's going to be some people who are still there, but I'm taking a look at the Winnipeg Jets now, who are 3 points back of that last spot, occupied right now by the LA Kings, and 3 points to make up over the course of 30 plus games. That's not that big of a deal, right? And the other part about this that we've talked about since the very beginning of this entire thing is, the Winnipeg Jets, they'd fallen behind a number of teams. And that's where things get dangerous, because that's where, games are working against you. If you've got 2 teams ahead of you in the standings, and all of a sudden they're playing each other, well, one of them is going to win. If you got to catch 2 of those teams, it's a problem. But, a night like tonight, you take a look at a game that's happening right now. The Edmonton Oilers are playing the Anaheim Ducks. Well, if the Oilers pull off that win, which is what it's looking like it's going to happen, the last I looked, it was 4-2. All of a sudden, Anaheim is that much closer to you hopping ahead of them. So the Jets have jumped ahead of the San Jose Sharks. They play tonight. We'll see what happens there. They've jumped ahead of the Vancouver Canucks. Those 2 teams are playing. So the Canucks have played 1 more game and are 2 points back. Right. So they're really not out of it. And they're actually a team I find that's a little bit interesting throughout this. But the Jets just keep jumping and leapfrogging teams. And now things become, a lot less dangerous. The fact of the matter is when you're in a situation like that, you just got to keep winning. That's what the Jets are doing. They get that win here tonight. Absolutely phenomenal. Great job. Now, before I bring Ken into the show, I got to make sure I bring something up here. Terry, who is always in our chat room. I don't know if I scroll up, I bet you here he is. Terry, there we go. 7-3 Oilers. He's keeping us apprised of what's going on here. Terry had let me know online earlier today. I made a big mistake, and I may have cost some of you your time. I respect all of you, and I respect your time. And my actions didn't show it today. Our long-form show did not go on because we had some issues, and the show, our guest wasn't able to make the show today. We let everyone know on Twitter, but I realized not everyone is following us on Twitter, or not everyone is perusing Twitter constantly. I did not cancel the YouTube show. So Terry was one of maybe a number of other people who may have shown up to watch the show, and the show did not happen. I apologize if I wasted your time. I'm sorry. I won't let that happen again. That was absolutely on me. Ken had nothing to do with that. I'm the guy. He runs the podcast. I run the YouTube stuff. So I owe everybody one. So, hey, let me see if I can't make it up to you peeps. And let's see if we can make it a good show, and hopefully that'll make it up for you. If we want it to be a good show, though, we need the main man in here, and that's Kenny with the best music in the business. Here comes Kenny. Kenny, there's so much that we can talk about with this game here tonight. But before we get rocking and rolling here, I'm desperate to make it up to the audience for the mistake I made earlier today. People are being gracious and, allowing me to slide on this. But again, I really respect everyone's time, and I wasted some people's time today. I apologize for that. But Lynn Reimer here says you can make it up by playing the headband song
Oh,
tonight.
yes,
So
there
let's
you
just
go.
get into it right now.
Nice.
I need to please the audience, and if that's what they want, they're getting it. Let's make it a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny show. I'll tell you, Kenny, someone even in the chat room was talking about how good the hair looked today. So you know what? Forget about it. Mess it up, crunch it down. I don't care what I got to do. I got to make it up to the people here today. And if Sean's headband is what it takes, that's what we're going to do. Ken, how are you doing tonight, my friend?
Fantastic, and appreciate you falling on your sword, Sean. But as you know, we do things as a team here, so you can't take all of the blame or the credit. So we're going to do our best to make it up to folks with a good show here. And before we get into the Jets' important victory, we will, like some of the Jets who wore their sharp red jerseys into the arena, and Eric Comrie, who wore his Anne Renee Desbiens jersey at the podium, we will salute the Canadian women for an excellent job done. Marie-Philippe Poulin with another 2-goal effort, including surprise, GWG for MPP in another incredible effort by the greatest player in the world. Very impressive. And what a game. I mean, what an incredible game. It's one of those, you knew the first one was offside, and you're wondering, is that going to disrupt things at all? No, Canada steadies themselves and did an incredible job. And just what an effort. I enjoyed quite a few of the games during the tournament. There's just such an incredibly deep team. We should salute the Manitobans on the team as well. Ashton Bell, Jocelyn Rock, the veteran, she played so many important minutes on the back end, and third goaltender Kristen Campbell also. Just an awesome job by a team that is so incredibly deep. Sarah Nurse, incredible tournament. Fillier, unbelievable. But I mean, this team was 4 lines deep. They did an excellent job on all facets of the game. They're incredibly fast. They're relentless. And I was very impressed by what I saw from that excellent group of hockey players.
You know what? I watched the game last night with Jeff Hamilton. We went out. I wanted to buy him a beer for him covering for me on the weekend. I heard you guys had a great show. Jeff was telling me last night after we were a couple beers in that the crowd was saying it was better that I wasn't there and that he was there. Jeff brings the smoke. That's what he does. And people love it. People love people who bring the smoke. And so in an effort to further, hopefully, re-ingratiate myself to the audience, why don't we bring Jeff Hamilton into the show here as well? We're going to give everything they got. I mean, if I got to juggle to make people happy, I'm going to do that. But Hammy's here. Hammy, it's great to see you, my man. We had a good night last night. We were talking women's hockey. We checked out the game. What was your take on that?
Oh, awesome, man. Never in doubt. I mean, a little bit of a bit nervous at the end, but I think that was just somewhat temporary. And yeah, man, what did you say I said to you? Okay, something about the audience. I was like, I drove home last night. I'm like, I don't remember saying that.
no, I was torquing things a little bit.
No, dominating performance. What a great, you know what? We are a women's hockey country. That is what we are. That is, and soccer, women's soccer too. So, start playing like a girl out there. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I gotta say, I mean, that just confirms to me like what I've always known: Canadian women rock. But I mean, at this moment in time, is there, when you get those big, huge moments that kind of like, galvanize the country, have the men done it like the women has as of late? I mean, I know the men didn't get the opportunity to do it at the tournament, but I mean, the soccer that we've, that we went through and the hockey. And I do have to say this: what I saw in that game yesterday reminded me of. You remember that it was either 2000? Yeah, I think it was 2010, and the Canadian hockey team, the men's hockey team, were playing Russia. Ken, I think we've talked about this before. Was it Ilya Bryzgalov was in net for the Russians? It was either him or who's the San Jose goaltender?
Nabokov. Yevgeny Nabokov.
It was either him or Nabokov. One of them was in net. But if you remember, the Canadian men, they dropped the puck, and the Canadian men came out flying, hitting, skating, scoring. It was just crazy. And there was a great quote from the Russian goaltender. He'd said it was like they opened up a cage of gorillas. They dropped the puck, and the imagery of it, I just loved it. It was like just these, silverbacks coming barging out and heading down the ice and just taking no names and taking over the game. That's what I saw from that Canadian women's team yesterday. I just thought they absolutely overwhelmed the I know it was 3-2 and it got close. I know that goal comes with 16 seconds left or 12 seconds, whatever it was, and it's basically a 3-1 game or something like that. I don't think the game was as close as that. The Canadian women, I just thought, were dominant. I saw that, when you see the whites of the eyes of the opponent, I felt like it was one of those games where the U.S. just were like, what did we get into here? And I honestly do think I'd seen someone tweeted it. I don't remember. I think it was I think Cassie Campbell tweeted that this was the best women's hockey team ever. And I entirely agree with that assessment.
Oh,
look at Ken.
Is this the first time? Is it a double?
He's trying to take.
I want the top billing here. Top billing.
People had no idea you were twins before this. So that's why you were in so many places so many times. Don't glitch
look
that,
at this, man.
Sorry,
my heart's saying we need more buffet.
My heart's still racing. That's a lot of buffet.
Hang on a second here. I had an internet problem. I tried to switch over.
Kenny, I thought Sean was talking far too long as well. So if we need to do a double Kenny to break that up, I think that's great.
I'm not done. I'm just going to close out my point. I just want to say I agree with Cassie Campbell. I think if you take a look at that U.S.-Canada rivalry, I think that at that moment in time, that rivalry was never as imbalanced as it was in that game last night and at the tournament this year. Congrats to the Canadian women. They absolutely rocked it for a hockey country that likes to feel not only that we're the best in the world at it, but that we were without a fault the best in the world at it, borderline dominant at it. I think that the 2014 men's Olympic team made us feel like that, and give it to the 2022 women. They made us feel like that as well. Absolutely phenomenal stuff.
I didn't want to break character. Billick walked by one here, so he's even commenting right now. He's watching.
Keep the show moving, Hamilton. Come on, buddy. Here,
go on.
Impressive job.
We brought you in to contribute. You're supposed to be making up to the audience here for me, and you're falling flat on your face right now. You pick it up.
Who's hosting?
Get it going.
Who's hosting? I can't remember a question for I don't even know. Right?
14
minutes.
Host would have to take a guest out if he keeps this up. Anyway, don't make me use the mute. Don't make me use the mute.
Start with the headband on, or did you put it on after some kind of statement? Did you?
I put it on because that's what the audience asked for, and they're asking for more from you, Hamilton. So get it together here, my friend. All right, let's get to the game.
Just one quick one. Canada was amazing. In the round robin game, the States actually took it to Canada. It was Dave Bien who kind of kept them in it, and they were missing Brianna Decker. So not to take anything away, Canada was an absolute force, but I just think we need to be a little careful on the domination station part. Though the tournament itself was an absolutely dominant performance by the Canadians. And what I loved almost more than the goals from Poulin, how about the back check and the back pressure on the strip that led to the rocket shot? I mean, just absolutely exceptional. And when we talk about two-way play, that's what we're talking about, right? I mean, the ability to make plays at both ends, back pressure, stick, lifts, all of those things. Impressive. All
right, let's get into the game and the game at hand here. I'm just going to give an open forum. We'll start with you, Ken, because that's how we start. But what'd you see out there tonight?
Yeah, obviously, a bit of a hiccup start. Not the start the Jets were looking for, obviously. We've seen this a few times in those back-to-backs. Obviously falling behind 2-0. I mean, the first goal kind of double screen. At first sight, you're like, oh boy, that's a long shot, but off the post and in from Vince Dunn. The Johansson goal, just quickly, I don't want to go to the buffet line on this one. Yes, Mark Scheifele gets beat on the play, but if you this was not a laziness from Mark Scheifele. It's an absolutely sensational fake of a drop pass by Marcus Johansson that allows him to pick up speed through the middle and get that goal. Again, I'm not saying he played it well. I don't like that he went for the around the back poke check behind the net, but he still got his stick in a good position. That was more of a good fake. And here's the most important part of that whole thing. You know, Scheifele wouldn't have liked how that goal went in. Look at how he responded afterward. One other thing we're going to get to later on. Double screen is what it was, Tishu. Donato and the other player were both screening him. It's a goal he probably wants back, of course. It's from the top of the blue line, but to say there's no one in front of him is a ridiculous take. In terms of the Jets' response, sorry, that's almost the earliest wake up in show history there, wasn't it?
Well, I was going to say,
I thought it was coming. I just was being silent.
I was going to say, Kenny, you don't need props to give a wake up, but you do have a prop.
I do. Jeff, do you have yours handy? Mine's in my bag, deep down into the middle
Jeff
here.
Jeff doesn't have one.
No,
Scotty's got
one.
No,
Sorry.
I got hand delivered a Kenny and Renny shirt today.
Okay.
That will be my third Kenny and Renny sponsored shirt. So my Monday to Wednesday lineup is set.
What a setup you have! What a setup you have!
Yeah.
So next time, Tishu, this is for you right here. Right there. Come on now. Let's go.
Get it together.
Impressive job on the back end. What have we been talking about? No offense from the defense of late. Game-winning goal supplied by Josh Morrissey. 2 assists for Dillon DeMello, who I know, again, on the tying goal, yes, the Jets should have done a better job of defending. Nice job by Eberle to get inside position. But overall, the Jets' defense, I thought, did a pretty nice job. Blake Wheeler, we're going to get into him a little bit further, but man, what a job he's done coming out of the break. And as I talked about on our hit, I personally love the defiance at the podium. We'll dig into that a little bit more, but after I sit down and start eating some of the shrimp cocktail and the lobster tails. And most importantly, Eric Comrie is a great story. I understand every night is a tryout for him, essentially. This guy's up to what, 5 wins now? 5 wins for Eric Comrie. You know when the last time Eric Comrie started a game in this building was? November 6th against the New York Islanders. So people can say whatever they want, and the sample size is small. Eric Comrie has done what a backup goalie is supposed to do for a hockey team. He's given them a chance to win on a lot of nights. And lately, some of those goals that were of the variety that he would like back, they have not been prevalent. So he's doing a nice job there. Jets Top Guns got the job done. And for all the talk about no complimentary scoring, well, Dominic Toninato, who looked to the sky twice yesterday night, once when he had a backdoor tap in from Dillon DeMello, and another time on a rebound from Adam Lowry, he comes up with an important goal. And there, we talked about Lowry not having as much offense as we've expected from him. A great sell job on the fake shot, creates the lane, Giordano over pursues, and the Jets find themselves back in the game with a late second, kind of not quite buzzer beater, but a shorthanded goal. Impressive job on a lot of fronts. Comrie had to be good when the Jets sort of not fell asleep, but they kind of took the pedal off for a little bit of time. Seattle kind of took it to him. Comrie stabilized. The Jets offense got going. And there we go. What were we just talking about 2 shows ago after the Chicago game? 21 games out of 47, 2 or fewer. They scored 11 in the last 2 games, right? So impressive job on the offensive side.
What are you thinking, Hammy?
I'm thinking, Kenny, did you want to go a little longer and cover the other players you never talked about? Because, I'm with you. I thought at the beginning of the game, I don't buy the excuse of the back-to-back.
Hey, hold on, Hammy. Before you go too long, we can't hear you very well. You have
How about now? Yeah, now?
I think we're just gonna have to grin and bear it. Yeah, keep going.
What's that? Can you hear the Zamboni?
You just sound soft. It's soft. Don't worry. You can still bring the heat.
Fragile.
Check the volume button on the old microphone there, Hammy. Not that one. Oh, there we go. I meant one on the. Yeah, good.
How about this one? Do I need to talk louder, or what's going on?
Yes,
Can you hear me over there, guys?
Yeah,
There you go,
gotta,
there
you
you
gotta, you gotta emote.
He's gonna get up here damn
This
quickly.
is broadcast.
But hey, you know what? This is what I think, guys. I think you know, I'm with you on all that. I'm with you on all of that, Kenny. I think I don't buy the you know the back-to-back stuff, because these guys would have been in bed by 10 last night. There's no flights involved. There's no whatever. So my point in that is not to talk about Blake's comments, because I can't wait to get into. It's that the start was bad. I mean, you know, this is a team that, yes, it's Seattle. They're rested. They're ready to go. At the end of the day, though, it's like, you know, you put yourself in this hole. Credit to them for coming back. I mean, I certainly thought that goal, you know, that Lowry goal certainly helped mount that comeback, of course. I mean, scoring that late, shorthanded. I mean, the Jets weren't really creating much to that point. And for you know, for him to show the patience as he did on that 2-on-1, I think was it Giordano they were up against? You know, I think he waited patiently. He didn't quite go down to his feet, but he waited till Giordano committed, and then Toninato had a wide open cage that he made no mistake in. And good for him too, because how many times did he look to the sky last night on opportunities that didn't go in for him last night? So, you know, there's finish there for him. The second period, I thought that was probably Eric Comrie's best period, especially at the point where they're now trying to mount this comeback. I thought the Jets, once they kind of got back into the game, started playing lazy again, right? They scored that goal in the first minute of the second period. And then what I thought really helped them out was Seattle decided to punch them in the chin a couple times and kind of remind the Jets that they're in a game, you know, because up to that point, Seattle wasn't really, you know, playing that style of game. You saw the Dillon kind of mess up. I don't think that situation was going to work out well for who was that? Donato? You know,
Ryan Donato, yeah.
I don't think that would have worked out for him all that well, but I thought that, you know, Jets figured it out. And by the third period, you know, at that point, it's obviously a letdown there. I thought the Jets kept the pace a little bit more, I thought they dictated the pace early on in that period, and then, you know, a goal-mouth scramble there and a redirection, and it's anybody's game. At that point, you know, the Jets, we've seen them this season, particularly, you know, whether you want to call soft my voice, fragile, whatever, we've seen this team kind of mentally buckle in tough situations like that, or something, you know, and in this case, found a way. I mean, good for Josh Morrissey. Great shot on him, great shot on that game winner, and then to finish it off, you know, Kyle Cotter's chasing 50, so you know you got to get that one with 0.4 seconds left. But you know, Eric Comrie too. I'll end with that. I thought that, you know, for him to, you know, I know a lot of fans wanted him back in the lineup, or back in the crease rather, after that showing in St. Louis, but to me, I just go to that game and then this game, just the long layoff, just to have that kind of composure, that kind of poise in net. Yeah, the couple of those early goals weren't that great, but those are good shots. You know what I mean? And I'm sure he'd want them back, but for him to rebound and you know, play tough when he needed to, he only had 23 saves tonight. I don't think he was overly busy. But all in all, you got to beat these teams. You got to beat the Seattle Kraken. Like, you can't lose to them. They lose this game, and you're not saying the playoffs suck, but the narrative is completely opposite. I mean, I was writing 2 stories tonight, and you would think I was talking about 2 very different teams based on a 15-minute window here in the third period. So, you know, they're climbing their way back. They're 3 points outside of that playoff line, where that seemed very, very improbable weeks ago when they were mirrored in a 6-game losing streak. So this team needs to pile the wins in. And to my point about Seattle, if you look at their last 3 losses, Chicago, Philly, and what was the other crappy team in there? Oh no, and it would have been this team. So, you know, it is what it is. I'll use that as a wrap-up, but I thought overall, I mean, you got the job done. You need to start beating teams, and the Jets are doing just that.
Jeff, is it mirrored or mired?
Mired, I think.
Yeah, sorry.
Sorry. Did I say mirrored?
Thought, you know, one of us as a writer is supposed to know.
Well, I know how much you love mirrors, so, you know, for me, it's one of those things where I figured you'd jump all over that. You would have been mirror. What mirror? What mirror?
Well played.
One was mirrored in.
Well played.
There we go. So, what I think was most important about tonight's game, because I agree with a lot of what you said there, Jeff. I think there was that, you know, the Jets didn't start the game well. got back in. Oh, there's Loveface is back. Great to see Loveface. Block that user. Someone had said, hey, all we need is Loveface and the show is complete.
There we go.
Was that a new sponsor last night? That was
bingo card is full. Bingo card is full.
We should be contacting Loveface and saying, look, at least if you're going to do this, you might as well pay us. You know, he's trying to. Anyway, I agree with you.
That's some wild nights, but I don't know what online strips without clothing means. But you know, there we go.
Beginning of the game wasn't great. Jets got their way back into it, right? And then I agree with you. It seemed like they got lackadaisical again. It seemed like they were doing everything they could to allow Seattle back in the game. If the Jets were competing down the stretch, not just to try and get a playoff spot, but if they're competing for placement and like trying to set their game up for the playoffs, I'm not sure I'm too happy with this game. I agree with you. I don't take the idea that they played last night and give them excuses for how they played in the second. They gave up the middle of the ice far too much. I thought Comrie, I think some people aren't the happiest with Comrie. I don't know why. I thought, yeah, he lets in those first 2 goals, but I do think that the Jets, he kept that from kind of getting out of hand at some point, and Seattle, getting back into the game and maybe taking a couple steps ahead, making it a lot tougher of a game. The one thing I really like about this game, though, is leading up to this, and we talked about this in the last show, Ken, there's this thing with, Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler's line that, when they're going, it seems like when they're at the top of their game, the Jets win, right? So for whatever reason, Kyle Connor, I said this earlier, and Kyle Connor, Pierre-Luc Dubois, they've been good all year, but the Jets haven't been good all year, right? But there's something about Wheeler and Scheifele that when they are driving, the Jets win. And so that's what we've seen as of late. What I liked about this game, in spite of the fact that Wheeler got 2 points, I'm not saying he doesn't hold a piece in this, but to me, this is one of the games, and we've talked about this, Ken and Jeff on the show, why doesn't it seem that all the Jets can get going on at the same time? This is one of those games. This is one of those rare games. This is, the spirit buffalo, the albino buffalo at the zoo. This is one of those games where, Josh Morrissey comes out and scores the big goal and plays really good down the stretch. Eric Comrie jumps up and keeps the team in the game right when he needs to. The first line goes and gets its job done. The penalty kill, yeah, they got scored on, but they also erase that and get the team back into the game, and it's a third and a fourth liner that get it done. And in the same game, Kyle Connor most definitely puts his thumbprints on that game. That is a complete effort. That is what the Winnipeg Jets look like when they're not relying on just Connor Hellebuck to steal a game for them. They're not relying on Wheeler and Scheifele to score their way, back into a game and win a game. That is what you want to see from this Winnipeg Jets team, and what I think so many people aren't understanding why we don't see more often. This team, they're good on paper. We heard that at the beginning of the season, in the preseason, in training camp. Blake Wheeler himself said, it doesn't matter how you look on paper, you got to go get it done on the ice. Well, he was right, because the Jets have, from the beginning of the year, looked good on paper and have not looked good on the ice for a lot of the season. But tonight, what we see on paper, we finally saw on the ice, up and down the lineup. And if I'm Dave Lowry, I think there's a little part of me that, one, I think he's been confident with how the Jets have been playing lately, especially because I think their defense has been good. But I think there's a little bit of we took another step tonight, even though it wasn't the prettiest game. He can take a look and say more people grabbed a hold of that win than we had against Nashville or against Minnesota, or even in the last game that they played against, both games against Minnesota. It's not Mark Scheifele scoring with 30 seconds left because he's red hot to earn an extra point against Dallas. This was everyone pulling on the rope on a night where they clearly didn't have their best game. And, at some points we're in danger of losing a game that they cannot lose. But everyone grabs a hold of that rope and pulls over the line. And here we are. And that's I think, exactly what Dave Lowry wanted to see out of this.
Yeah, and you're right, Sean. I mean, that's, at least 3 lines. I mean, again, with Tony Nato scoring, it's all 4 lines kind of have a piece. But to me, if you're Dave Lowry, you've had the top 2 lines going at the same time in 2 games in a row. which is incredibly important. You have Scheifele and Wheeler up to now 23 points since the All-Star break. You had, Dubois involved again. You have Kyle Connor involved, even before the empty netter, sets up the game winner. You have Josh Morrissey with 8 shot attempts, I think it was here. Another incredible performance there. But I think you nailed it. They need depth scoring. They've had it. They got the defense involved. You got good goaltending from your backup. One quick thing before we get too far down. A lot of people have been asking, no full update on Cole Profetti's status. What happened? Cole Profetti got hit by Jamie Alexiak along the boards. We were trying to debate. I think it personally looked like it was his shoulder. To me, was what he was sort of favoring on the way to the bench.
Who I winked at.
And the other one, Andrew Kopp. We don't know Andrew Kopp's status. We expect to get an update tomorrow. Like we said yesterday on the show, Sean, I will be surprised if Andrew Kopp is not in concussion protocol. We don't know this for sure, but I mean, based on what kind of hit it was and how he went directly to the bench and off the ice, if it's any kind of other evaluation, it's again, we're not doctors, we just play them on TV. I'll be surprised if we don't find out that Andrew Kopp is in concussion protocol. So
while you're on this topic, take a swipe at this, guys. Tico Napoli is asking if we're surprised that there's no Greenway hearing after that.
Yeah, it was one of those accidentally on purposes, so I think it's maybe a little bit harder to prove.
Yeah,
maybe. I know that
there's no smoking gun in that.
That's what I mean. So, but that gives us a perfect opportunity. We're halfway through the show here. I'm going to get onto the soapbox for a little while. It's not going to be a full buffet, but I absolutely.
Kenny, one sec. I just want to say just an earlier point, to the point about, and I'm not going to go on here. But this is the first time we're seeing, like, how many times did we talk about the Scheifele and Wheeler going, or Connor and Dubois going in separate instances? We're now seeing them both going. Nashville game, the last 2 games here, that is a dangerous team when those 2 lines are going.
Oh yeah.
Bang on. Sorry, on my soapbox. I hate the Yanni Gourde hit on Mark Scheifele. I want the NHL to be tougher on hits from behind. There's no reason whatsoever you don't call that a major. The guy is 2-3 feet off the boards. It's clearly on the numbers. And I hate the fact that it's going to take a guy that needs to be stretchered off for it to be a 5-minute major. To me, I know the game happens quickly, but because you have the opportunity to revisit it and look at it again in the penalty box after a major is given, that has to be called a major on the ice. There has to be a deterrent. That can't just be a 2-minute minor. I give the Jets a lot of credit for not chasing after Yanni Gourde and trying to exact revenge. That's a perfect opportunity where you take a number. They responded immediately, but Mark Scheifele went wild because he knows he could have had a broken neck on the play. I hate that hit. I want it out of the game, and a 2-minute minor is not enough. Sorry, pass the baton to Jeff.
I agree with you. And the reality is, Kenny, you said, okay, they didn't get the extra points. If he's laying on the ground,
exactly,
that's a 5-minute. But it's not just that. He got up right away and started swinging. So it just immediately, the refs immediately took it as this guy isn't seriously injured and blah. And Mark tried to plead his case after, right? He said, look at the hit, watch the hit. I'm with you 100%. You got to get rid of those hits. Blake Wheeler said it after the game. That's why everyone was riled up. Everyone knows how serious it could have been. We all know how serious it turned out not to be. But those are the things that you need to have preventative measures, because you're setting precedent after precedent after precedent by giving guys 2 minutes for attacking the numbers. Now, he didn't, there wasn't as much speed there, but there was a blatant move to push him from behind, unsuspecting, into the boards. And and it's not like Mark Scheifele. This isn't rookie Mark Scheifele. Like, he's pretty sturdy on his skates, so it's tough to gauge. But that he's pushing with quite some force. So I'm with you. It's just one of those things where it's like, wake the hell up, eh, Kenny?
Yes, well done.
I mean,
Well
it's one of those things. Not only does he get up and start swinging, which, and not only did Blake Wheeler run in there and drop the
Not
gloves.
even a
Like,
swore.
I was wondering if Wheeler, he dropped the gloves and he grabbed a hold of someone. I was wondering, was he just dropping the gloves to make sure that he got a hold of someone to kind of clear the deck, or was he going to pull someone out of that pile and start chucking? Because it's been a long time since we've seen a Blake Wheeler fight. But these guys are angry, and then if you see it continues in the penalty box, I mean, Mark Scheifele is giving Yanni Gord the business for a long time in the penalty box. But there's something I'll say about this one. I should say this because I said this earlier. Hit sucks. I love Yanni Gord, though. I mean, Yanni Gord is, I hate that hit, but the guy plays like a style of game that he was such a huge part of that Tampa Bay team. Like, if Seattle is dealing, and by the way, guys, did you see how many scouts were in the building tonight? Like, holy smokes, there's a ton of scouts. I don't know if
Dorian's been here for the last 3 games.
Dorian, the last couple of games, but I mean, I wonder how many teams are looking at Seattle. Like, if there was a way you could get a guy like Yanni Gord, like the Jets could use a guy like Yanni Gord. I mean, boy, if you're a Jets fan and you're mad at Yanni Gord right now, and the Jets went out and picked up Yanni Gord, you would change your mind very quickly. He's exactly what this team could use.
He is, but he makes $5 million, so it's a problem.
I know it's not happening. I'm just saying, like,
he clearly disagreed with, the maliciousness of that hit. I think he, not that I can read lips as far as we were, but he was pretty defensive in that penalty box, and it looked like it wasn't one of those like F you. It was my side. It was an exchange of ideas and thoughts, not swear words.
But I'll tell you this. So I take a look at that situation. Clearly, the Jets were pissed, right? And I do think that was felt a little more throughout the game. Who was it that Wheeler was slashing back and forth with at one point?
Who slashed? You mean he slashed him? Who was that?
Yeah, trailed in behind the play.
Vince Dunn slashed him.
It
was on the hands.
And the ref was right there.
So this was, I mean, this kind of carried throughout the game, but this is one thing we should give the Winnipeg Jets credit for. I think there's been a number of times this season that the Jets have gone into a game, and I don't think the Jets are the biggest and the toughest team, but they went into a game and played a little bit of this game that Seattle tried to play here tonight, pissing the other team off, trying to take them off their game, and it worked. Like, I think the Jets have earned 4 to 6 points this year doing exactly what Seattle tried to do to them tonight. Here's the credit that I'll give the Winnipeg Jets is I think that they were extremely pissed, but they buried it, right? Like, as mad as Mark Scheifele was and as mad as Blake Wheeler was and the team were, they buried it and they didn't let it turn into something that they lost their heads, went out of their way to get retribution. The 2 points are just too important. And the Winnipeg Jets, that shows to me a laser focus that their priorities are where they should be, and we're clearly there tonight. That game could have spiraled out of control when we started seeing the slashes and stuff like that. I was up to watching the game with Joey from CTV, and we were saying, like, this keeps happening. This could be one of these games that the refs lose control of, and I agree. I don't think that the refs kept control of that game. I think the Winnipeg Jets kept control of themselves, kept focus, put themselves in a position to win the game, won it with their skill and calmness, and I think they deserve credit for that, because we would have been talking an entirely. Imagine how we would be approaching this game, this post-game show right now, if the Jets had gone out and lost their heads, put a whole bunch of guys in the box, ended up allowing a power play goal and losing that game by a 5-4 score or something like that. We would be roasting the Jets right now, and we would deservedly so. So give them credit where it's due. They kept their heads, they kept focused, they kept their eye on the ball, and it's why we're talking about another win tonight and them pushing their way towards the playoffs.
I thought it a little differently, though, in that scrum. I think if it's not Mark Giordano in the middle of that thing, kind of playing referee a little bit, if I recall correctly, I felt like Blake saw this, and those guys whipped their gloves off in milliseconds, so they were ready to go. They take a shot in the chin, because that's what happens when you drop your gloves. You welcome getting hit in the face. So not one of those guys took a cheap hit, and I felt like Mark Giordano, if I'm correct, I believe he was right in the middle. He kind of played mediator on both sides, and I think that because Seattle's not a tough team. Seattle's not a chuck 'em kind of they didn't build it.
Alexiak's a tough one.
Of course. I'm not saying they don't have big players. It's a hockey team. I'm just saying they're not known to and they're not chuckers. So like I felt like
Right.
cooler heads prevailed. Certainly credit where credit's due, but there's also a disappointment for not making them pay on the power play either. I don't even think they got a shot on that power play.
Before we go too far, because someone brought this up about defending Scheifele last year, how many people were thinking what I was thinking when Kyle Connor went to put the puck in the net?
Oh, I said it to Tim Campbell right before he went. As soon as he got to the puck, I'm like, look out.
And so I will say this: how many of the Winnipeg Jets fans that were super upset and defended Mark Scheifele last season would have been entirely livid if those two players would have carried through and tried to hit Kyle Connor? And this is the point that we made a number of times last year, is those guys realize that Kyle Connor is going to score, so they let the play go, because the social contract that exists in this day and age in the NHL is, I'm not going to run out of my way to try and take the guy's head off for that. And you can see it. Anyone who wants to go take a look at the replay of that, the two defensemen skate hard back as soon as they see that he's going to get the puck in the net. They let the play go after that. And
Kyle Connor puts his head up too.
Well,
he's quicker.
Not only does he put his head up, he puts the puck in the net, and then he reverses and is going backwards, trying to use the net as a shield. But the point is, the Seattle guys didn't try. They didn't try to go after him and take his head off, and that's, I think,
why take a suspension when you're not going to make the playoffs? This game means nothing to you.
But suspension, right? To your point, that's one thing you're thinking, is you're going to earn a suspension out of that. Okay, the show's flying by here. We only got 20 minutes left, so let's get into the Wheeler stuff. Let's start off, Jeff. I'm going to give you the first one on this because I know your lips are smacking at this one. So let me set the table here. Blake Wheeler has 11 points in his last 4 games. I forget what the question was, but he's basically asked about his production, and his response is, I don't want to sound arrogant, but what's changed? The suggestion that what we're seeing from Wheeler is what we've always known about Wheeler. Now, I will say this: I don't think it's accurate that so what we're seeing from Wheeler now is peak Wheeler. It's Wheeler like circa 2018 when he has the hat trick against the Pittsburgh Penguins and he's lighting it up. And I remember doing setups for Hockey Night in Canada games, and it seemed like every time I did it, I was like, Wheeler and Scheifele have a combined 18 points in their last 5 games or something like that, right? This is the kind of hockey they're playing right now. I don't agree with Wheeler's assessment that this is what we've seen from him and that nothing has changed and this is the way it's been all along. But I have to say, the swagger, I like it. I like the fact that this is how he sees himself. The fact that he sees himself this way is why he's able to make this happen. What is your take on it, Tammy?
So the actual quote is, is this anything new? With the classic Wheeler look. And then I don't mean that arrogantly. I just mean that, and he kind of pauses. He goes, I just have a lot of confidence in the guys I play with. I play a lot of minutes, and I just feel like in time it's going to come. Now, I loved it. Yeah. I loved it. I thought it was to me, you want to see that. You want to see that passion. You want to see that screw you, attitude. This guy's been raked through the coals by media, by us, and to have the kind of stretch. He's got 11 points in the last 3 games. He's a massive piece of the puzzle right now. He's finally playing to what I think everybody certainly didn't necessarily expect. I don't think anyone's expecting Blake Wheeler to score 11 points in 3 games, but to his point in that answer was that he gets a lot of minutes. I mean? He gets a lot of ice time. He gets a lot of opportunity. Under Paul Maurice, he would get opportunity when he didn't necessarily deserve it, or when he wasn't playing, the way we expect him to play, whether that be through injury, whatever it is. What we saw was not the Blake Wheeler that we've come to expect. Now, he's not only saying it, but he's backing it up with his play. He's doing things that is vintage Wheeler. So how can I sit here and not I love the fact that he goes, well, what do you expect, pretty much, or what's any different? I like that attitude. I like that tenacity. And they're gonna need that passion down the stretch here, and more importantly, you're gonna need the points from Blake Wheeler. So if I'll take every post-game show where he tries to shove it up our hoop and tell us, hey, you guys don't know what you're talking about, I can score. I'm fine with it. But he's got to keep doing it. And right now, it's the Blake Wheeler show. How do you argue with it? And this is the thing I've been saying all the time. You can flip the script so easily. This is professional sports. if you don't score points for a stretch of games or weeks, you are going to be talked about in a negative light. If you go stretch of weeks like we see with Blake Wheeler, you have to then give him credit. This is what the game is about. So I mean, I don't know. At least he's scoring points with the ice time and opportunity he's getting. That wasn't always the case this season, and now we're seeing it. So good. Say whatever you want post game.
Yeah, and this is the biggest thing. Rob nails it. When Blake is at his best is when he's skating. I mean, there have been times Blake's legs are always moving. It just he hasn't been able to get to the same spots in the last stretch of time. Part of that was COVID early, and he obviously had a knee injury that he was coming back from. I mean, the pass that he makes to Scheifele on the doorstep yesterday, absolutely sensational. Incredible vision. He forced the turnover. He's doing all kinds of things without the puck. And that's the other part, too. I mean, when Blake continued on the quote, he was like, I've had bad starts, but because I have confidence in myself, usually it comes around. I mean, last year he almost became a point-a-game player despite missing time. This year, now he's on the doorstep of being a point-a-game player also. What is it now? 32 points in 34 games. I mean, is he going to put up 91 again? No, but you don't expect a 35-year-old captain to put up 91 points. So, I mean, he's doing his part.
The guy who's gets paid over $8 million to put up that points.
Well, we debated this the other day, Hammy, when you weren't here. I mean, Blake's being paid for past performance because he outperformed his previous 4 contracts.
I think Lawrence Richard absolutely nails this here. He says he deserved the crap then, and he deserves the pats on the back he gets right now. Like, listen, you know, Blake Wheeler may not like getting called out, or sorry, I don't want to say getting called out. Blake Wheeler may not like the media writing about him not producing at a level that's expected. He may not like that. And Paul Maurice, when he was the coach, didn't like it to the point that he, gave a soliloquy that went across the nation about you're beaking my captain and being upset about it. But here's the fact of the matter is Wheeler gets paid $8.25 million a year. He's the captain of the team. And to his point, he gets the ice time. So if he's not producing at the level of an $8.25 million player when he's given every opportunity to do it and all the ice time to get it done, that has to be a topic of conversation. I think Lawrence Richard nails this. If you are not producing in that spot, you are occupying time that someone else on the team could be helping the team out in. Let's make no mistake about it, and Lawrence is saying this right. Right now, the Jets are on fire, and they're on fire because of Blake Wheeler. But you can't make that argument and then go back to the hole that the Jets have put themselves in and say that Blake Wheeler, and his play earlier in the season didn't have a role in putting the Jets in the hole they're in right now.
Hence all the other post-game shows. They haven't
this
been
is what I'm
reflective
talking
of
about.
Positive Wheeler.
So people can't be mad at you for saying, like, I know, and it's what people want to say. So, it's what they want to talk about. They want to say, oh, who's talking about Blake Wheeler now? Like, they're offended that people doubted him in the first place. But when people aren't producing, that's what you have to talk about. You don't turn a blind eye and say, oh, I'm not seeing this right now and everything's fine, everything's going okay as the team crashes out of the playoffs and was in that direction. I mean, we say those things because what Wheeler is doing right now, this is what he's paid to do. This is what's expected of him by the contract that he's got and by the ice time that he is given to get this done. So I agree. I think it was important that he said that. He said he's given the ice time and the opportunity to do that. Good on him for making use of it. That's what he's paid to do, and he's playing phenomenally. Let's give it out there. And I said this, Hammy, I don't know, I think you were sitting beside me. You may have heard me say it last show. To be entirely honest, and hey, like, I want to call myself out if I think that I've got something wrong. And I don't think I ever said this on the show, but I truly did not believe Wheeler was capable of playing at the level he's playing at right now. Now, I don't think, at any point in his career, he sustained this at, because otherwise the guy would end up with, 200 points in a year if you kept playing like this. I don't think the expectation is he's going to hold this. But we used to see this from Wheeler. We used to see these stretches where he was just red hot. You could not hold the guy down. And we're seeing that right now. I thought that we'd seen the last of it. Clearly we haven't. He's got his back up because I think he knows that people thought that about him. He knows we thought that about him. I don't want to say we, I don't want to put words in your guys' mouth, but I think he knows members of the media thought that about him. He knew that fans thought that about him. and it's out there. People in the chat room have been calling for him to be traded, for him to be bought out for a long time. But again, the point that he makes about the ice time is an important one, because what Blake Wheeler is doing right now, it's not a ha-ha, I told you so. It's a return to what's expected of someone who carries that letter, makes that money, and is given that ice time.
So I just want to say, since you're giving kudos to people who are making comments, I think C-Mac's nailing the comments about Wheeler in the sense that, like, you know, as much as, okay, yeah, I kind of disagree with you. I think he is saying, aha, you know what I mean? I think he is.
I know
saying,
he is.
You know,
I
like,
agree
this
that
is
he
me.
is.
This is what but no, like, you know what I mean? Like, you weren't like that before, and you want to see accountability from your captain.
Exactly.
That's one of the biggest things. And like, even today, like, the excuses come from him. Like, it's hard to play back-to-back. It's, you know, it's like you went home at 10 last night. You know what I mean? Like, this is the Seattle Kraken. I don't hear any other captain in the National Hockey League coming up with the constant excuses. So, like, it's great, and I think he deserves to be celebrated for his week, but all of that is in context. And it's not one or the other. Maybe there's some gray in there, but, like, there is a lack of accountability there. You want to hear guys talk about the whole. The Jets are still hovering around 500. You know what I mean? So, like, there is accountability there. Like, and so, I don't know. I feel that comment's bang on too. And I had to go all the way up because we got an active group here, but I've stayed on there because I think that's an important point. Because, you know, it's great that he's doing this. I think it's, you know, and we talked about this entire, you know, this idea of, like, you know, it's you know, you can celebrate him when he's playing well, and you can, you know, be critical when he goes on stretches where he's not playing well. If you look at his points right now, he's hovering around a point per game. But that's not denying the fact that he had a 5-point game and a couple 4-point games. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
So there's a consistency here that, you know, that we need to see from not just Blake Wheeler. And I think part of this too is he's scoring some goals, but he's setting guys up, and guys are making plays too. Like, look at Dubois' goal today. Like, that's a nice saucer pass into open space, but Dubois takes 2 strides and picks the opposite corner. You know what I mean? So, like, things are going well for the Jets. And so, you know, and to Wheeler's point today too, it feels good to play well when the team's playing well. The reality is the team doesn't often play well unless guys like Mark Scheifele and Blake Wheeler are playing well.
Yeah. And that's the other important thing.
Ken, sorry, just 1 second. Let's bring Scotty Billick in here. He's been waiting a while. People wanted him. You're gonna do your thing here, Ken. I just wanted to get it. I was looking for the opening. Oh yeah, check that out.
I'm just here to shill for you guys.
Yeah, nicely done.
Quite nice.
Ken, do your thing. Then we're
just the last thing. What Blake said at the end was that he's racked up tons of points on bad teams, and he doesn't care about that. He wants to win. So,
so I want to address Rob's comment. Hey, Rob, appreciate your comments, love them. But the Jets are on a 2-game winning streak. It's the first time they put back-to-back wins together since the beginning of January. So
yeah, that's not a media creation.
Winning streak is not true.
Yeah.
Wake up.
There we go. All right. Yeah. Scotty, you might as well weigh in on this. What did you think of Wheeler's lack of arrogance? He's not trying to be arrogant. What did you think of his lack of arrogance tonight?
No, I think he is trying to be arrogant. That's just Blake. But I was trying to figure out a word. Like, it's almost like I can't say the word on here that I was talking to Jeff about, but he's kind of so unlikable sometimes that you start to like him. You know, like, I mean, I like it. I like the bravado that he comes across. I don't know. I think he's a good leader in terms of what he does with the team. Yeah, and I think he's showing it now. I think he had a tough start to the year. I think he's getting older and Father Time's catching up with him, but there are still these flashes in him. I think traditionally he's a slow starter too. I was trying to figure out if that was true or not, but yeah. No,
in some seasons it has been. And one quick thing, 26 points in 19 games is not a flash. That's a quarter season of production.
Right. Well, this thing is, like, it's almost like Mark and Blake have kind of crept up into this kind of point per game production.
Yeah.
Again, they both had slow starts. I think both those guys, if you asked them and they honestly said something, they both got hammered by COVID. And it took a long time for both of those guys to kind of. I think Mark Scheifele always said expectations of the world on him. You know, on his own shoulders, he placed them on his own shoulders to try and make the Olympic team, right? And I think he didn't step up to that, and now he is kind of, you know, without that in the question, he's kind of there. So,
well, even listen to what Paul Stastny said. I mean, Paul Stastny, who sits beside Mark on the plane, he basically opened up the vault and said, Of course, Mark has been the Olympic thing weighed on him because he saw it every single day, right?
And he wasn't playing well. So on top of it, it's
because of the pressure he put on himself.
Right, he put so much pressure on himself to make that team. He played so poorly out, trying. He was trying to force offense. It wasn't there. He was doing it at the expense of defense. The team was struggling. I think he carried a lot of that. But at the time when they need it, I think they're both playing well enough that I don't need intro. If you want to play Sandstorm, that's the intro music. But anyway. You probably can't get the rights on that. Whatever. I can be done if you want.
Yeah, I mean,
whatever you feel like.
It's up to you, Sean.
I'll
go back to one thing. That hit is so bad that Gord put on. Again, I understand Gord's a great player, but I agree with Kenny on that hit. It's a terrible hit, and I think you got and like I'll just echo what Kenny said. I was listening to it on the ride home. But it's like you got to wait till a guy is going to lose feeling in his legs for the rest of his life before the NHL is going to actually step up to the. But that game tonight, I don't know how you guys thought that game was ref. It was horrible. It was a horribly ref game. The first penalty on and you could argue that Logan Stanley kind of put on a similar hit, and it just didn't turn out as badly. Because that boarding.
No, he wasn't nearly as far away from the boards, and he wasn't nearly as far away from the boards.
He kind of went in the same way, right? The way that he went in, he was kind of punched over and kind of went in. But either way, I think it's just the refs lost control of the game early and they never got it back. And to Sean's point that he said earlier about, the Jets kept their composure. Yeah, they did. I think that was one of the kind of the hallmarks of them being able to come back out of that. It was that. So.
Let's dive into Josh Morrissey. I don't think we've talked enough about him. I just thought the confidence in his game before he scored tonight was the way he was playing defensively, the way he was jumping up into the play. There was another, even after he scored that goal, he just kept pressing the play. Ken, I know you wrote an article not too long about him. Why don't you take us off the top with this one?
Josh Morrissey's rejuvenation has been, I think, the most undercovered story on this Winnipeg Jets team this year, quite frankly. We know what he went through last year in terms of the emotional toll that season took, with his father first being diagnosed with cancer and eventually passing away. His ability to get back to being a confident player, his skating, his edge work, his lateral movement, all of those things, his puck movement, have all been at an exceptional level tonight. 5 shots on goal, 8 attempts, 23 plus minutes, 3 hits, 2 blocked shots. He's involved in all facets of the game, and his ability to get back to being a top pairing defenseman for a team that struggled defensively for quite some time has been very impressive to watch.
I'm with North End Rick too. I think.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Go for it.
Sorry. I'm with North End Rick too. I think he's just converting those opportunities. He was getting opportunities early on, maybe not as many, but getting solid opportunities, was getting a bit snake bit. And I love Josh Morrissey's game. He you talk about being even keeled. That guy is as consistent as they've come on the back end so far this season. And for him, he's a great play driver. He's not a huge guy, but he plays tough in the corners. He knows how to, he's not a cheap player. His skating is incredible. His skating's always been his asset, but this year in particular, it just feels like his edges. He's got a bit of the Sidney Crosby style stuff where he seems in rhythm skating wise, even more than he's ever been. And I'll just to kind of put a bow on it, I'll go back to what Kenny said. Look, I don't know what it's like to lose, your father and just kind of assume that this is now a fresh season. He carries a lot there. I think there's a lot, there's obviously a major emotional component to this. This is a game where, players are constantly trying to find that extra edge, right? They're trying to find something. And when you're dealing from an emotional toll that I'm sure Josh Morrissey, certainly last year, of course, and I imagine, continues to do, just the fact that he's been able to play the way, he's played under all circumstances, the level that he's played. This guy's a special player and certainly having a good year.
Scott?
Yeah, I don't know what else to add to it. Here's the thing. I think in hindsight, we were way too hard on Josh Morrissey last year. We just didn't know, right? And that's part of the problem half the time, because sometimes you just sometimes you don't know what a guy's going through. And I think there was a confluence of things with Josh Morrissey I mean, obviously he lost Jacob Trouba the 1 year. He also signed the big ticket, and then he didn't really live up to that. Then his dad was kind of, obviously that played a massive part. I think in the last year and a half, in the bubble, and then last season as well. So yeah, I mean, for him to come out of this, like, I think that's the bigger story is that, I don't, your dad dies in the summer. I don't think you park that in September and start playing well again. Like, I think it's a huge testament to the mentality, or like the mental fortitude of Josh Morrissey to come out under all of these circumstances with 2 years that are way below his standard. Just the way that he's kind of had to try and carry the defense, carry Tucker Pullman at times, all those things, and then to lose your dad, and now come back this year and put up an incredible year, probably his best since 2017-18 with Trouba. Like I think that's like a huge testament to how Josh Morrissey's kind of, I don't want to call it rebounded, but just let's say kind of navigated this whole thing and has come out on the other side, probably, and maybe I'd say the most mentally strong that he's probably ever been.
Sean, I gotta agree with the comments here. Your headband's turned into a Speedo of some kind. It looks like on your forehead.
It looks like underwear. Like.
I'll put it back up. I wanted to touch on this. Now you talked about him not cheating the game. Here's my theory on Josh Morrissey. You know what, Ken? We got to get back to more like season 1, where I would just throw my wild theories. Just at you, so you had to handle the the steaming, the hot potato that I throw in your direction. I agree with Hammy. I don't think he cheats the game. This is my theory on Josh Morrissey. If he wanted to be, he could be a more offensive defenseman than he is. But what I see from him is on a night like tonight, he knows when to activate and to get in and to be that presence up offensively. Jumps into the play tonight, scores a timely goal. And I think if you go back, I'm confident if you went back through the season and saw the goals that he scored, they're extremely timely. And what that tells me is that this is a guy who plays defense first and does the things that he thinks the team needs to do to win or to keep the team in the game. And then when there's a chance to go up, or if he feels like, okay, this is a time where offense for me could be extremely valuable, that's when he jumps into the play. And I always think of it like this, right, guys? Anyone who's played hockey knows that there's some of those guys out there that you want on your team when it matters most. And sometimes there's those guys out there who score like crazy and disappear at the times that you need them most. And what I find with those guys who score like crazy and disappear are the guys who will get the 5th, 6th, and 7th goals in a 7-2 game. Do you know what I mean? When it's when it's tied 1-1 and whatever, those guys aren't really around, but they know how to rack it up. Those guys are point hounds, right? They go out and they get. Josh Morrissey's not a point hound. He doesn't need to go and put up goals or assists and make plays happen in an effort at all times of the game to get on the scoreboard. He's more interested in managing the game. And I just think that this is a guy who, if his ego was a little bit bigger, or if his focus was more on personal results than it was on team results, he's a guy who would put more pucks in the back of the net and be involved in more scoring plays. But he's involved in the right scoring plays because he takes defense first and he takes the team's success first. And I just thought tonight was a perfect example of that. All of a sudden, in the third period, you started noticing him down the ice, jumping into the play and creating stuff. And it's because he's choosing to do it at the right time, finding the right balance. And I just think that that's a trait that he doesn't get enough credit for.
Yeah,
right?
Situational awareness is what you're describing, right? I mean,
exactly. Yeah. Guys, let's talk about Logan Stanley. I just want to get back to this. The Logan Stanley staying in clearly by the way that he's been utilized.
Such a friendly chat. It was such a friendly chat leading up to
Well,
this.
let's blow it up. That's what we're here for. We're here to talk about the issue. So he gets in. Clearly, Dave Lowry has a lot of faith in him. He's shown it by the way that he's used him and he's played him. Billy Hainala drops out of the lineup, which is going to drive a lot of people nuts. But in a situation like this, is Dave Lowry, I'm going to start with you, Scott, is Dave Lowry right to have made the decision he made based on the results that we're seeing?
I think that like for me, it's always come down to penalty kill and power play, and you have so many weapons on the power play already. Does Billy Heinola offer anything more to it than it already has? I think the one thing that's been a hallmark of Dave Lowry's tenure so far has been the improvement on the penalty kill, and that's where you see Logan Stanley playing. At the same time, he's also a big guy in the back end, and I think coaches love big defensemen. I mean, that's just the way it is. You see Jamie Alexiak on the other side. He was coveted by this team at the trade deadline. That was last year or 2 years ago?
Last year, yes.
Last year, right? He's the piece that this team has always wanted and they never really had. I'm not saying it's the right move to play Billy Heinola over or to play Logan Stanley over Billy Heinola. I think there's probably room for both of them. But at the same time, I mean, you only have, realistically one spot to fill, and Dave Lowry's choosing the safe option in terms of he wants a guy that he can depend on power or on the penalty kill over a guy that he can play on the power play. And with Leah Pion coming back into the lineup, he became kind of, expendable in that sense that if he wasn't going to play on the special teams as a sixth defenseman, they'd rather play the guy that is going to play another role other than just playing 5-on-5, and I think that's why he's on.
Take it away, Javi. I want your take on this.
Well, to me, I think I was with a lot of people when the decision to go with Logan Stanley against Minnesota, and not surprising per se in the sense that, bigger team. And I thought it was odd that Dave Lowry came out and, for someone who doesn't really say much of anything, for him to come out unprovoked and say that or not unprovoked, I guess he was asked.
No, I asked him,
asked him specifically, sorry. To say that, he would have been in regardless, if the team was a big, the big bad Wild or not. But here's the thing. I thought Logan Stanley played well against the Wild. And I think you need to reward good play. And you can like Billy Heinola and still understand that Logan Stanley's in the lineup. And it's an unfortunate situation because there's a lot of veterans ahead of him that you might be able to argue aren't as good, haven't played as well as Billy Heinola at certain stretches. But the politics of hockey suggests that he's the next guy out. So I don't necessarily disagree. I kind of was, iffy about the decision against Minnie. But then I thought Logan Stanley was played pretty well, and he was fresh off injury. He was ready to go. They held him out an extra game to make, and then I thought he deserved to get in with Seattle. And the other thing for me is I understand the debates. That's what's amazing about this sport. It's amazing about hockey. It's amazing about fans. You sit here and you debate. The Jets have won back-to-back games, so I don't tend to argue with if the results are there. So. Would I like to see more Billy Heinola in? Are we going to see him, on against the Oilers? Maybe. Yes. But and I hope we see Billy Heinola soon. I just think for me, it's and great comment by Bobby Hull here is that they should fight for that job too. And so I'm not just because I thought that Logan Stanley played well against Minnie. I'm not advocating that Billy Heinola shouldn't get in the lineup. I just don't think it's as simple as I thought that Logan played well against Minnie and deserved to be in the next game, and we'll see what happens with the Oilers. But you got to get Billy Heinola. There needs to be a priority to get Billy Heinola back in the lineup. Whether it's giving another guy a rest, everyone's kind of banged up here. We need to see the continued development of Billy Heinola because I think he's just going to get better and better.
Ken?
Yeah, taking strides, right? I mean, and then that's the thing. I think that what we know about Billy Heinola, there are going to be hiccups, but there's also hiccups at times with Logan Stanley. And these are two guys that don't even have half a season of NHL, just over half maybe for Stanley, but we're not even at a point where they play at 3/4 of a full NHL season. So there are going to be ups and downs, and Jeff nailed it here. This isn't if you like Heinola, you have to hate Logan Stanley or think he can't do anything. Like, both players can be part of the top six at certain times, but to Jeff's point, and Dave has referenced this when talking about his forwards, you can't have all of the same thing. And yes, Billy Heinola can be a zone exit machine. That's true. But there are also going to be some defensive deficiencies that creep up. So on-the-job training at the NHL level is hard, and there are going to be mistakes. But that's okay. Young players make mistakes, veterans make mistakes. So I agree. I want to see more of Billy Heinola. I think there are certainly some of his qualities would play well against the Edmonton Oilers in terms of their speed game. But I also agree that there have been times where I think that Logan Stanley's come out of the break knowing there's a competition on, and he's been able to elevate. He was very assertive in the game against Chicago. I thought there were some nice stretches for him against Minnesota. And today, again, he had some good stretches in the game. Can this be an open competition? I mean, to my point where I was asking about Dave, if the schedule was flipped, per se, if it was Seattle first and then Minnesota, and you weren't worried about the game having a temperature of 105, I think we could have easily seen Ville Heinola stay in the lineup, and then you could have gone to Stanley here. Now, people will say, well, if that's the case, why didn't you go back to Heinola today? Well, I mean, coaches overvalue a winning lineup at times, and that's part of the deal, and you understand why. But I think both of these players can be in the Jets' top 6. But what has to happen in order for that to take place is they're going to have to make a move to one of the teams that's in the building scouting. They're going to have to move one of their veteran players in order to make room for Ville Heinola. And if the Jets don't think that he's ready to be a full-time player, then he needs to go to the Moose and play 20-plus minutes so that he gets ready for the next time he's called up.
I'll say this. Jeff says Heinola needs to get in at some point here. I don't agree with that. I think that when you've got what you're in right now, you've got to get into a role. You got to treat it like the playoffs. You don't take guys out of the lineup when you're in the playoffs and things are working, right? Like, you basically don't take guys out until you lose. So maybe, you get a loss here or there, but I don't like that. But that said, I don't think Heinola should have come out of the lineup in the first place. And I know that there's a balance here, right? There's this balance of, like, players are succeeding, don't interrupt that, versus this idea of not losing your spot to an injury. And I know that was something that Paul Maurice thought a lot about. And I don't fully know Dave Lowry's take on it, but I assume that has something to do with Stanley coming back into the lineup. You don't want to say to your veterans, hey, you better stay healthy, or you better try to play through an injury, because if you don't, someone could come up and take your spot. I know that's a balance that's happening there, but I thought, the conversations we had about Ville Heinola was he was just getting better and better and better every game. And yeah, he had some flubs. Ken, we talked about it at length, the flub that we thought he had in that Philadelphia Flyers game that I think both of us feel cost the Jets that game. But hey, as if Logan Stanley hasn't had his flubs over the years. I like the idea when you're dealing with young guys of an even playing field. If a guy's in, keep him in until he does something to be taken out. So I think the timing of taking Heinola out wasn't right. I also think that if you are going to take a guy out when he hasn't done anything wrong, and you're seeing other situations where that's not happening, it starts to make you wonder why you aren't getting the same treatment. And when I think about that, I think about Dillon Sandberg. Dillon Sandberg got in, impressed, didn't have any of the flubs that I think we've seen from Stanley. Like, if you take a look at Dillon Sandberg's body of work, there's not a lot of mistakes in there, right? He's not, super showy, but he was a steady defenseman who really did not give his coach any reason to take him out. And so the coach didn't take him out. And to me, that's the right way to do things, right? So, but if I'm Ville Heinola, I take a look at this situation. I think, well, would Sandberg have got taken out of the lineup? Because I don't think he would have. Like, me personally, I don't know what Ville Heinola thinks. I don't think Sandberg, playing the way he was going to get pulled out of the lineup. So I take a look at this situation. I just think that if we're setting the tone of this as an organization where you play until you give us a reason to take you out, I don't think Ville Heinola gave the Jets at that stage where he was a reason to take him out. And so I'm a little bothered if I'm Ville Heinola by that. But then again, every player should be bothered if he's getting taken out of the lineup. Ken, you got a retort?
No, just the big thing is that Sandberg brings an element that Heinola does not have. Back to our point, you have puck-moving defensemen in DeMello, Morrissey, Pionk, right? They're all not big guys who move the puck. So Sandberg is more like a Brendan Dillon, a big, strong guy, which is why that Logan Stanley has the edge right now, because they don't want to have too much of the same thing. I mean, Dillon Sandberg, you're right, did a great job, but now when Dillon Sandberg comes back from injury, he should go to the Moose because of all the time that he's missed this year.
Agreed.
He's going to be playing catch up. again. So that's the only thing that I think is the situations are different because of that other element. Sandberg got in at a good time. He also brings a more physical element, even though he is mobile for his size. So, and Kovacevic fits in there as well. I mean, it's not that he played poorly, but I mean, on the depth chart, he was 8 or 9 or 10 or whatever number you want to give him. So the fact that the Jets went 11 deep and suddenly they've gone from shortage to surplus when it comes to defensemen is a good quality. But right now, the problem for the Jets, they don't have time to play enough of the guys that look to be ready for NHL action. Now they have kind of one too many guys in order for those guys to get enough work. So that leads to the decision making that is going to lead up into the trade deadline.
I also think that, like, we talk about, whether it's accountability or playing up to your price tag or whatever it is. I really do think there's the Jets went out, Kevin Cheveldayoff went out this summer and got Dillon and got Schmidt. Well, I don't think both of those guys were kind of so. Schmidt was coming off one of his worst years of his career in Vancouver, and Dillon, played all right, but I don't think they're living up to it, but they're solidified in this group. And the reality is if you're talking about getting more from guys like Wheeler, guys like Scheifele, I think you need to get more from guys like Dillon and Schmidt. And, and that's part of this. I think that's part, they're not going to be taken out of the lineup. Their contracts dictate that. But I'd be interested. I just feel like we're juggling all these guys, these younger guys, these up and comers, and they're hindering a bit of the development. Now, I'm not suggesting necessarily taking guys like Schmidt or Dillon out of the lineup, but you have to wonder if you're not getting more from those guys. And I don't know if you guys agree with me on this, but I just feel like they're not necessarily living up. I think Dillon brings a physicality that this team needs, a tenacity that this team needs. Nate Schmidt, I think you need a bit more from him. Great interview. Yeah. But let's see some of that transition on the ice.
I mean, he leads them in points, though, Jeff, right? For a team that gets not much from the back end, he's got 20-plus points on the back end. So, I mean, that element he has brought to the Jets.
Sure. Okay. I'm not right. But more like points is one thing. I mean, I'm not saying he's leading the points of a group of defense that don't score points.
No, fair.
You know what I mean? Like being the best of the worst.
Sorry, to me, and I'm not disputing what you're saying. I mean, when he was on the top pairing with Josh Morrissey, that's what when you're paying a guy almost $6 million, that's what you need. Like, to me, this gets back to the situation when you had Tyler Myers and Dmitry Kulikov making more than $10 million and playing on your third pairing, right? I mean,
a $6 million guy hanging out in the bottom of your right defensive side. So.
Right, but he also played half the year on the top pairing. So it's the same as what we talked about all last year with Dylan DeMello. When he's on the top pairing with Morrissey, $3 million is a bargain. But if he's a $3 million playing beside Logan Stanley on the third pairing, he's a great mentor. But when the Jets have a bunch of $1 million or $750,000 players, on the third pairing that you could probably use, that's where it gets to be problematic for a team that is tapped and needs offensive production suddenly, right? So, and I would say just quickly on Brendan Dillon coming out of the break. Brendan Dillon has definitely elevated his game. You talked about the physical element. I thought they're probably some of his best games, but I mean, you're right. I mean, these are guys who've played on the top pairing in the past. Dillon played with Brent Burns. He played with John Carlson. Nate Schmidt, yes, last year was tough in Vancouver, but in the bubble, he was on their top pairing for a Vegas team that was expected to contend for the Cup. So it's been interesting to watch. And here's the thing. I mean, if Kevin Cheveldayoff doesn't go out and get those two guys, all four of us are crushing him for not addressing the needs. Yeah. It would have been almost impossible to think that all these, even a guy like Declan Chisholm, we could even be considering him to be close to being ready for full-time work, even though he's only played a couple of games, right? So it's super interesting, but that also doesn't solve the problem of ice time. They're going to need to find room to get these guys in, and if those guys aren't head and shoulders above them, then you got to consider moving one of them.
But those things aren't mutually exclusive.
Agreed.
It's not hammer Kevin Cheveldayoff for not addressing the defensive needs, and at the same time not be able to ask more from the guys that he addressed the blue line with.
For sure.
I mean? So it's not. I'm not saying he shouldn't have done it. That's not my argument.
No, I know you're not. I'm just saying that's what. It's the same as when the Jets brought in Steve Mason. It didn't work out that Steve Mason was the number one guy, but what an insurance policy, and he brought out the best in Connor Hellebuck. So it's so funny. Most people see that
one
move.
of the best pickups in the game right now because you have Connor Hellebuck playing
Right.
like a Vezina goal.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Goalie.
So the move itself was a bust. It's just like when the Jets got Olli Jokinen. Olli Jokinen wasn't a top-line center, but Olli Jokinen allowed the Jets to keep Mark Scheifele and Barry for 2 years until he was ready to play.
Okay, guys, have we really not talked about Comrie yet?
We touched on him in our game recaps. I don't know if we got into it.
No, we did.
Yeah.
Well, here, let's each give a quick thought on it, and then we're going to shut this down.
I was
Start with you, Scotty.
I was completely wrong on Eric Comrie. I think I said in my bold prediction of the year that the Jets would be finding somebody else by American Thanksgiving, and I was just completely wrong. Like here's the thing with Eric Comrie, like I think tonight's game was one of those games where, kind of like last year, where some of his games were tough because he hadn't played in so long. But when Eric Comrie comes in the net, I don't think there's that lack of confidence anymore, or that need to, play a certain style of game in front of him to try and prop him up. Like I think he's done well. I mean, I have no thanks, Maul. But no, I think Eric Comrie has been a competent backup this year for the Jets, and that's just kind of where I feel on him. I won't go any further.
Hammy?
Yeah, I mean, like I said off the top, I just that's a tough situation to be in, to not to put in the work, as you heard Blake Wheeler say post game. Nobody, and this isn't a guy who blows smoke. Nobody works harder than Eric Comrie. Where I think I disagreed in his post-game comments was that they show up for him. I don't think that's always been the case in the past. I don't think they've necessarily played great in front of him or showed up for him. And but I'm not going to look at the whole season. I'm just going to look at the last 2 games here, and I'll go back to after the St. Louis victory, where I thought Comrie settled in very nicely. And I'll steal Nate Schmidt's comments post game, because I agreed with them wholeheartedly. Was he didn't get in there and get all hyper in the crease. He didn't overplay things. He wasn't scrambling across the crease as we've seen. And Eric Comrie loves to give credit to Wade Flaherty, and that's probably a big piece of that puzzle, is to stay composed and to work on his technique and all that stuff. And I think it's really shone through, both in obviously the St. Louis game and then again tonight. I just it's pretty easy for a guy who hasn't played. And what's the stats? Like, I think it was like 2 games. Like 2 games before that was like December, mid-December, early December.
10th, yeah.
Before that, so that's not a lot of action. So you can't really blame a guy for maybe being overly excited in the net, or to get rattled when you're now down 2 goals to the Seattle Kraken. I mean, and 2 not so great goals. So to see him. He wasn't overly busy in St. Louis, and he wasn't overly busy tonight. However, he showed up big when he had to. He showed up big, and we say this, and I hate the whole timely saves and all that stuff like that. But if you look at St. Louis game, he shut it down when the Jets needed him. We all know about the Scheifele giveaway. That opportunity. There was like 4 or 5 key saves there, and I'd say the same thing tonight with the middle period. The middle, where the Jets were mounting a comeback, they needed him to be big when the Jets did get back to tying the game, they started to get lazy again. And as I said off the top of the show, it wasn't until Seattle started punching them in the mouth a little bit, getting physical, that the Jets kind of woke up. And I thought during that time, during the comeback, and after they kind of were a little bit lackadaisical when they tied up, Eric Comrie was at his best. And so, kudos to him, credit to him. They're going to need him down the stretch with this condensed schedule. He's probably not going to get a ton of games, but the reality for the Jets is they need to win most of their games. So Eric Comrie's doing his job. As you said, Kenny, he's the backup. And kudos to him. Great game for Mayor.
Ken?
One quick one here. Our buddy Marshall Patterson.
Hold on, I've got it.
Oh, you got it? Okay,
Well,
we'll get it together. Get it together.
You get it together and answer the question.
Yeah,
you know what? Get going.
I texted you half an hour. I texted you half an hour ago.
It's ready to go. I'm going to close the show with it, for God's sakes. Here, come on.
I can hear you, Sean, with the valve.
Jeepers. Finish your thoughts. My God.
I already told you how great he was in the game. He's 241 goals against, average 916 save percentage for a guy who had 2 starts in since December. Like, what else do you want from the guy? This is the thing for me. When the Jets signed Laurent Brossoit to a one-way contract, we all looked at each other. How did this guy get a one-way contract? He barely played a game in the NHL. Well, that's the same thing. The sample size was similar, slightly higher than Comrie's, but we knew that he was gonna have to show it. And Hammy, you touched on it perfectly. I think specifically of that game in Minnesota in the 2018-19 season. On the back-to-back, the Jets absolutely needed it. He let in a wrister from like the blue line. He was jittery. He was so fired up for the game. Here's my chance. He let a softie by him, and it just went south from there. I mean, and then he went on the magical mystery tour, to Detroit, to Arizona, waved again, picked up by the Moose. Like, it was a tough time. I mean, Eric Comrie is one of the most positive people in the entire planet, let alone in the National Hockey League. But his ability to keep a positive spin on things, where he had to listen to 4 or 5 different goalie coaches, I mean, impressive that he was able to keep it together. And then the next year, he earned an NHL job. Kudos to him. He's still, like you said, Jeff, he's going to have to perform. I mean, I said it at the halfway point. The over-under on the 40 games was going to be 32.5. As long as the Jets don't fall out of it, I'm going to take the over. I think it's 7 starts for Comrie, 33 for Hellebuck. But in those 7 starts, 6 more after today or more, he's going to have to probably win 4 or 5 of them.
Comrie's also the world's nicest human being.
Exactly.
That matters. I will say this. It's not a disagreeing with you. I don't think he earned a job. In the NHL. Like I think this was I think this was a loyalty thing by True North.
But they believed in him.
No, this was
believed in him. They also had pennies to spend.
Yeah.
And
that's what it was.
And so the reality is that they gave him an opportunity because of his commitment. It's not, and when I say you can earn it off the ice. Most goalies earn it on the ice. But you can earn it off the ice with how you handle yourself, your preparation, all those things. And I think he's proving the Jets right in giving him that shot.
My point only being that if Wade Flaherty says to Kevin Cheveldayoff, I don't think he can do the job, they would have found somebody else for $750.
That's what I mean about the off-ice stuff. Like, I think they look at him, his preparation, his belief, all those things. I just don't think he had a sample size to go, hey, man, this guy could be a number 2. You know what I mean? Like, not really.
The sample size was bad. Like, yeah.
Anyway,
I'll just say this, and I'm going to close on this. I said earlier how I thought he showed up at the right time in the game, made a lot of saves when I thought, to Jeff's point earlier in the show, which I entirely agree with, the Jets got back into that game and then kind of seemed to go to sleep for a while again or not take it as seriously. I thought Comrie was the guy who kept them going at that time. I'll just say this. I think, the Jets, we talk about the hole that they put themselves in. Dave Lowry, they talk about the hole they put themselves in. I personally believe that throughout that hole that they put themselves in, they missed opportunities to put Eric Comrie in, to try and put an effect on that team. We've seen it. We've seen him jump up and play and play right and give this team chances at every point this season. I think shutting him out the way that the Jets have shut him out, I don't agree with it. It's always easy to second guess a coach and stuff like that, but I'll say it, that's that point where Connor Hellebuck had lost 7 straight games, or what was it, when they played him back-to-back nights against Nashville. I think he lost 7 out of his previous 8 games. That, to me, it was, and I know they won that game. I just want to say, I think Eric Comrie has done everything he's been asked to do. Everyone's right when they talk about him being a nice guy. He's a great human being, all that kind of stuff. But I take a look at this situation. I think Eric Comrie has done everything he's been asked to do, and they should have gone to him more and given him more opportunity to either A, push Connor Hellebuck during points of the season, or B, just be that guy coming off the bench who's going to go out and say, I'm going to try and steal one for this team, because it seems to be the mindset that he's adopted, and it seems to be working for him. And then we're going to leave it
brought
at
to you by
that.
Dustbuster. Someone's just not loving the takes. It's like, oh, he said something. Oh, no, nothing. Oh, he said something. Well, nothing.
Anyway, here, let's do this. Let's bring in this. I'm trying to take stuff off the screen, Ken. Here we go. All right, first off, let's bring in, this is a picture from our guy, Marshall Patterson, who's down, I believe, in California, swinging the golf clubs and wearing the Wake Up t-shirt. You know what, Marshall? Next time you talk to Ken, throw that shirt on because he could use one of those for his performance here tonight. And then I wanted to bring this out.
Come on.
What do you got? What?
The best part of the picture, he has "wake up" engraved on the Vokey wedge, man. So you need to wake up. You need to wake up.
Okay, so let's get on your phone, Ken.
It's personalized. It's personalized.
Show us on your phone because that was really getting it across.
I have never seen Kenny this angry in my entire life.
Let me show you my phone here. Anyway, I got to bring this
I
up.
think Kenny's taking the whole comment about
Scotty,
Eric
do you
Connor
have
being
your
the
cup
nicest guy
on
in the
you
world
right now?
seriously.
I know you had it earlier. So there's the cup. Ken, do you have yours?
Yeah, we got it all
Ken,
together.
Don't show us your phone screen again. Show us the mug.
Do I need to put my T-shirt on that you bought?
Do you have it? Do you have it? Just hold it up to the camera. Anyway, this is a bunch of the stuff that we got going. Flip it around if you could, Scotty, because this is one of those things that we think someone in the chat room talked about it earlier. It is entirely on point. You've got your wake up coffee mug for your coffee in the morning. Could there be any better way to start your day than getting a wake up call? Ken Weeb wake up call on that day. This is the other shirts we've got. So you've seen Sean's head.
Higher. There you go.
You've seen Kenny's wake up shirt. Well, this is just a straight up K&R shirt.
Color too. It's like, I call it blue leopard of some kind. It's like this.
It's nice. It's sweet.
I mean,
the blue steel, buddy.
It's
blue steel.
It's third shirt. And let's just bring up some of the stuff. That's another color that the K&R shirts come in. The mugs are white. I've got a white one at home. New merchandise at the Sportsnet store. Go to www.sportsnet.store and look at the K&R collection. We got mugs. We got water bottles. We got 3 different kinds of shirts. We brought the prices down for you. Stay tuned. We're going to get hats here if we can figure it out at some point. And we're going to get headbands. But we've got some better price points for you. We've got the shirts down in price. If you want to get your K&R gear, you know where to go. Thank you so much for your support, everybody. It was a great night because Hammy joins us. Bill joins us, the flute. I almost still feel bad that I didn't get like a K&R logoed flute for you, Scott, because I miss seeing the flute. It's been too long.
we were talking about this too, about the hammer and the flute shirt. Me and Scott were thinking you were too worried about setting new record sales. You know, you wanted to slow build. So
yeah. And you thought Blake Wheeler was arrogant, Hammy. There we go.
Hey, I was gonna say one thing. The mugs. You know, you've made it. I'm a big garage sailor. Anyone who's a garage sailor out there. You'll know you made it when you start seeing some Kenny and Renny mugs on the on the table for anywhere between.
Why would you ever sell one of those? Why would you sell one? My goodness.
Just another selling point though, because they asked dishwasher and microwave safe. So
there we go. There you go. Exactly. So anyways, I got to say, guys, I'm looking at this. I keep looking. I feel like I got a Prince vibe going on with the suit and the kind of hair up all over the place. I just had to add that before we left out of here. Hammy, thanks for joining us. Billick, thanks for joining us. Ken Weeb, rocking it as usual. And our chat room was on fire, as they always are. Again, apologies if you tuned in to the long form that wasn't there earlier on today. Won't let that happen again. Saturday is our next show. It's going to be great to see everybody then. Thank you for joining us.